about it.
Okay. I know you do speaking. I don't know if you're still actively do speaking. So I wanted to talk about how important mindset is when it comes to the Airbnb. Can we talk about it?
Yeah. You can get into this game and you will be so stressed out. It's funny because it's like I bring people onto my team, right? Like I bring in property managers, and it's interesting just to see like how their idea of just rentals and Airbnb changes once they're on the other side of this as more so a host. It's absolutely interesting. So mindset is very important, just because if you're not strong within your mindset, things are going to begin to hit the fan, because they are. I always say that the best way for you to kind of prepare for something is to understand that something is going to happen. Don't think that nothing's going to go wrong. Something's going to go wrong, and just make sure that you mentally prepare yourself for it. So when something goes wrong, at that point, you have to have the mindset to say, I'm going to keep doing this. Because I feel like the way that Airbnb, or I guess this game, is set up, typically we are getting leases that are anywhere between 6 months and 12 months. It's easy for a negative experience that you have that isn't even factual with the guest, for instance. It's easy for a negative experience like that to ruin everything that you've already built. And then at that point, you're saying, all right, I don't want to do this anymore. If you don't have the mindset to say like, okay, how can I actually pivot? What is the real reason behind this? But I typically like to say, like, for me, I can't go back to a job. So how can I pivot in terms of if this is something that is no longer serving me, or if I'm feeling like, all right, my mind isn't really in this, I'm not enjoying it, I'm not passionate about some aspect of this before I'm deciding to leave, how can I figure out how can I transition this into something else? And for me, I mean, I like to use myself as an example. There were some things that it's like, Airbnb really knocked down or tested my mindset, I would say. It tested my mindset in terms of, can I handle this while also trying to juggle my full-time job, while also trying to juggle creating a podcast and, having guests on and recording? How can I handle all of this? And then even furthermore, once I started the tiny house build and really figuring out like, all right, I have to work with all of these contractors. This is my very first time doing this. And a lot of people don't realize I'm not from Atlanta. I'm actually from Chicago. So I'm down here in Atlanta, and a lot of this I'm doing for the very first time, I'm doing on my own. So that in itself kind of just creates okay, do I really know what I'm doing? I'm questioning my decision making. But in order to kind of, I guess, overcome all of that, again, it's just understanding, like going back to those baseline principles. That's been for me like the main thing. I understand my business. How can I, again, transition my business, or transition the real value of what I have and turn it into something else? And that is why it's like you see me talk about the tiny homes, because that's something that I still have fun with, but it's still within this short-term rental space. So I've just gotten a little more specific.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, continuing on mindset, there was a piece of content you posted. I was on your page. I wanted to play it out loud for you and just kind of see, from the source where the inspiration for that came from.
Okay.
Oh, wrong one. Hold on.
I'm like, dang, that one inspired you, Michael?
Furthermore, from there, you're scaling, because some of you are immediately jumping into, I want to make money in my sleep. You ain't even made money while you up. What? How you want to make money in your sleep and you ain't even made no money while you up? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. You're jumping levels. You jumping levels. It don't make no sense. Somebody tell me if that makes sense. It don't. I see everybody laughing. It don't. It don't make no sense. So you're trying to make money in your sleep and you ain't even made no money while you up. Use your time wisely. So whenever people.
All right, so that was it. I'm assuming that was related to Airbnb. Can we talk about that? Like, where did that come from?
Absolutely. So that is one of my live videos. That's a replay of my live video. I go live a lot on the Airbnb Money platform, talking about my experience, but also talking about things related to money marketing and mindset as well. Gotcha. So that was one of the mindset pieces, because I see a lot of people who tell me they're interested. Like, I've touched base with thousands of people in regards to Airbnb at this point, whether it's via DM, webinars, what have you. And so many people are wanting to do this and they do something else. And their primary goal is to make money in their sleep. But when I ask them, okay, what are you doing right now? Like, what are the ways that you are actively making money? Aside from just the job that you just have to go to, but you claim that you hate. Aside from that, what are you doing? And a lot of them have nothing. Like, they're wanting to put in no work in Airbnb, but you're just wanting to make this passive income. You can't make the money in your sleep until you're actually actively making it while you're awake and you're putting in those hours and you're putting in that work. So I would say that's the main thing that was just speaking towards, is like, you can't sit and say like, okay, I don't have the time to do this, but now I want to start Airbnb and I want to make money in my sleep, but you don't want to put in the work for it. You got to put in the work.
Definitely. Okay. Yeah. No, that was definitely a fire piece of content. So I just wanted to mention that real quick. All right. Transitioning. So some people might say, you know, maybe I might instigate certain situations. I want to know about a situation you had with your Airbnb, which you made public. I think there was like an arrest or something. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So yeah, so this was September of 2021. I had a guest in one of my corporate lease departments. So these are the 5 kind of fleet of apartments that I told you about. Yeah. I had a guest within one of those apartments that pretty much was refusing to leave, was refusing to abide by, I guess, the contract that we had created, and this is your checkout. So he was refusing to leave. And of course, if you do not know or you do not understand, this is something that I didn't even know coming into this game. This is why I tell people about it as well. But when you have an instance like that where a guest is not leaving, there's not a hotline that you can call on these platforms like Airbnb and VRBO, and they're going to send a team out. There's not, you can't even when you're calling the police or like local law enforcement, they are very, I guess, selective in helping in instances like that, because typically they are considering it a civil matter rather than like a criminal matter, and they deal with criminal matters typically. So that's something that I did not necessarily know before actually being in this situation, but typically a lot of people think it's like something like that will never happen to me until it does happen to you. So that is what happened to me. And after making 3 attempts with local law enforcement, making my own attempt in terms of just going and speaking to them in a cordial way, at that point, I had then decided like, all right, my name is on these leases. I am going to show up to the apartment and I am going to do what I am typically going to do, right? Like, I'm just going to go in, I'm going to go in the kitchen, I can sit down, and I'm going to make it to a point where, all right, you might be a little uncomfortable and understand that, all right, it is now time for me to leave because I've overstayed my welcome. Mm-hmm. So I did that. And of course, as a woman within real estate, I'm an advocate for having your license to carry. Mm-hmm. I had my license to carry, had my license to carry there. And very, very long story short, law enforcement ended up coming because at that point, when I immediately stepped into the apartment, the guest had become very aggressive. So they're kind of like chasing me around the apartment, all in my face, have their camera. And at that point, I didn't have my weapon, and they've now seen my weapon. So they've called the police, and they're pretty much saying on the phone, she's waving this weapon at us. We have a kid in here. And the police come, and of course, like, the wife is crying and there's tears, and it's a whole bunch of stuff. And even with me having my printed leases in hand and all of that, they then make the focal point the fact that I have this gun. There was a 3-year-old child in the space, but again, this is an apartment, so he was more so closer to the kitchen rather than where we were. But because I had this gun, they're saying that I had time to de-escalate the situation. So I was then charged with disorderly conduct. And that is pretty much how that played out. It did not play out in the best sense at all. It is still an ongoing case. Those guests ended up staying in the apartment an additional 3 days once I was arrested. And they took like $600 worth of items when they left. And the major, the major piece of this is they are not from this country, or at least the husband was, whose name was in the reservation. They are from overseas. So they're from, I believe, Belgium or Brussels. But yes, so that is what happened with that. Very, very unfortunate. Crazy. And I think the main piece that I'm upset about is missing the reservation I had after him that was supposed to come, because there was a concert in town. I was supposed to make a good grip from that, and that one was just kind of out of there. So I think that's the main piece that I'm mainly upset about.
Got you.